I suppose in recent years, so probably since General Andre Cox, when we brought in the accountability movement, so governance has really been something that the Salvation Army's had to be really looking at improving as other organisations. So for me, I guess governance, I'm very comfortable with where the Army is going, but I don't imagine it's an easy journey for everybody. And it's not even been easy for us here either. We're a hierarchical, autocratic, structured, semi-military structured organisation. So what does governance mean today, where we also have other values where people, particularly younger people, really want to be in a collaborative leadership style. And so governance, I think, made sense when you imagined that there was, I suppose, that heroic leader who rode in, who told everyone else what to do, and there was lots of saluting, and you just can't do that these days. Your reputation is so fraught that if someone comes in and abuses that, then you'll be picking up the pieces and your mission will be undermined. So really for me, governance, I suppose, simply is about guarding our mission. And so that's something that any organisation, but also any church needs to be. It's also about making sure that the main thing stays the main thing. And I think that's a challenge for the Salvation Army as a large social service enterprise as well, with different rules. So for example, in New Zealand, and I think also in Denmark, which is quite similar, you can speak truth to power, and it's accepted to do that, and it won't put your funding at risk, and it won't put your churches at risk. Obviously in France, you have to have a very separate, church and faith, church and state, enshrined in law. In the States, I understand you have to be really careful in that as well. And so just again, the governance of different countries, there's all those, things that are quite difficult. So I think Christianity these days, we would know, and COVID has added to this, the Christendom is gone, and there's a new sense of what we're doing, and so we serve God well. So I don't think we're in a stage of circle the wagons, retreat, panic, this is the hardest time to be a Christian or the hardest time to be in ministry. It's not like that. But we do need to change and move on in mission. And even though governance might sound a bit boring and controlling, it can be really powerful. So I'm quite happy about the changes.
Let me come running at this another angle first before and you may need to bring me back onto the subject.
Okay.
I've been in settings where people are wanting to criticize hierarchy. It seems to me, this is just my opinion, hierarchy in and of itself is neutral. It's a tool, it's a system. And tools and systems can be used for good or ill. I think that our hierarchical system can be problematic only when we make it problematic.
Interesting.
I think that it helps us in many ways, and especially I do like the very militaristic, the martial aspect of the Salvation Army. I like that image personally. So I don't think there is a problem with hierarchy in and of itself, but as anything, once humanity gets a hold of it, well, it can be perverted, it can be twisted, it can be used for harm. But the system itself, I don't think, is the problem. I think when we are all of a sudden manipulating the position we have, the power we might have, when we choose to not be accountable. So I very much appreciate the accountability aspect of this. I think there's danger there, part one. Part two, I think there is, and this is happening somewhat organically. I think it's being more and more codified, but it's happening more organically across Army world. I think there is a benefit to not just listening to what is being said at the grassroots, but inviting that input. This is all part of consultation. It's not negotiation. It's consultation. And I think there's a key difference there. And so I very much enjoy hearing what the people on the frontest of the front lines what they have to say, what their take. What do you see? What are you experiencing? Speak into this decision we're making. Help us understand how more widgets or fewer widgets impacts you in what you're doing, in not just advancing the mission of the Army, but advancing the kingdom in your community.
As somebody who, that's really helpful. As somebody who's been at the top of a system or a corporation, in that matter, as a territorial commander, you had significant opportunities to lead and influence people, but you were at the top. You were the CEO of the corporation, and so, but the territorial commander, the ecclesial leader of it as well. So you understand this maybe more than other people can. What does that a hierarchical system, autocratic, some would suggest, and I don't say that in a bad way, what can it do well? What can it do distinctly from other systems?
I think it can be more decisive. The more people you add, the more cooks to the kitchen, well, then the weaker the broth, I think. Ultimately, somebody has to make a decision. And given the amount of information that you have, what's the decision? I know that you have several viewers, listeners who come from international settings, so they may not know who General Colin Powell was here in the United States. He had come up through the ranks of the U.S. Army, became the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and was also later on the Secretary of State in the United States. In one of his books, he talks about decision making in this kind of a setting. He says, listen, once you have 75% of the information you think you need, make a decision, because the window is going to close and all of a sudden the moment is past. Somebody has to be decisive. Somebody has to make the decision. And more times than not, I think committees, helpful as they can be for research, for information, for input, fine. What's the call? And so our system, our Salvation Army system, is such that finally the territorial commander, whoever he or she may be, it's not a decision of a committee. It's not follow we. No, it's follow me. Here's the decision. Here's where we're going.